There was a time when wars were fought, kingdoms were built, and lives were lost over something you probably wouldn't think twice about today. This wasn't gold, silver, or precious jewels, it was food. But not just any food. It was something so rare, so essential, that it became a currency, a status symbol, and even a reason for betrayal. This food held more power than we can fathom in our modern world. It could determine the rise or fall of civilizations. It was more than nourishment, it was survival, wealth, and prestige wrapped into one. Salt. Today, it's the humble shaker on your dining table. A seasoning you sprinkle without a second thought. But centuries ago, salt was life itself. Without it, food couldn't be preserved, trade routes couldn't thrive, and armies couldn't march. People didn't just crave salt, they depended on it. And in some parts of the world, they paid for it with their blood. Take the Roman Empire. Soldiers weren't just paid in coins, they were paid in salt. It was so valuable that the word salary literally comes from salarium, the Latin word for the portion of wages allocated to buy salt. This wasn't just a seasoning, it was wealth in crystalline form. In West Africa, salt was exchanged for gold, weight for weight. People considered salt, this white, grainy substance, as valuable as gold. Caravans of camels would trek across the Sahara Desert for weeks, risking their lives just to trade slabs of salt. Entire cities, like Timbuktu, owed their prosperity to this trade. Salt wasn't just valuable, it was political. It was powerful. Governments imposed taxes on it to maintain control. In 14th century France, a tax on salt known as the gabelle was so hated it sparked riots. Centuries later, it fueled the French Revolution. And in India, it was salt that inspired one of the most famous acts of defiance against British rule, Gandhi's Salt March. But why was salt so precious? It wasn't just about taste, it was about preservation. Before refrigeration, salt was the only way to keep food from rotting. Without it, survival in harsh climates would have been impossible. It was the invisible thread connecting farmers to merchants, soldiers to empires, and families to their next meal. In parts of the ancient world, salt wasn't just traded, it was used to enslave. Conquered people were forced to work in salt mines under brutal conditions, often until death. In the Roman Empire, salt mines were considered a punishment worse than execution. To be sent to the mines was a death sentence, slow and agonizing. And yet, for all this suffering, salt remained indispensable. Wars were waged over it. Roads were built for it. It shaped economies and even inspired myths. In some cultures, spilling salt was considered bad luck because it symbolized wasting something sacred. Now think about this. A substance that once decided the fate of nations is now something you can buy for pennies at the grocery store. Salt is everywhere, and yet, it's invisible to us. We don't even stop to think about its power, its history, or the lives that were sacrificed for it. So, the next time you sprinkle a pinch of salt on your food, remember this: it wasn't always just seasoning. It was wealth. It was power. It was life itself. And for centuries, it was worth more than human lives.